Hey, contract MVPs, it's Foster Sayers, General Counsel and Chief Evangelist for Pramada and Contract MVP. Happy Valentine's Day. Love you guys. So, while I love contracts, I also love technology. It's probably why I work at a contract management software company. So, today I'm going to talk about technology and I'm going to talk about ChatGPT. So, here is ChatGPT. And if you haven't seen it before, well, now you have. So I have been exploring and tinkering with it as one does when they're curious about legal technology. And I haven't really found a good use case for it to accelerate my work as an attorney. A big limitation is that it doesn't protect confidentiality. And for attorneys, that presents ethical and attorney-client privilege issues. So I started to think, well, there's got to be some way that it could be useful relative to legal services, but maybe perhaps not by an attorney. And so what I thought about are all of those questions that I've gotten since I've graduated law school and become a member of the bar from people who maybe I haven't heard from in 10 years, but when they have a legal issue, they suddenly reach out. Could be a distant relative, an old classmate, an old friend, and they usually aren't concerned if their legal issue happens to be in my wheelhouse. They know that I'm an attorney and they'd like to see if I have any advice that I can give them. So I thought, are there things that maybe in the future I could delegate or offload or accelerate with ChatGPT? So I thought back to the pandemic and some of those types of questions that were most frequent. A lot of them were around eviction. So I thought, I wonder how ChatGPT would advise someone asking that question. So for those that are totally unfamiliar with ChatGPT, the way it works is you give it a prompt like this: what should I do if I'm being evicted? And when you do that, then it starts a chat, a conversation where you go back and forth and it responds to your prompt. So as you can see, it immediately starts listing out the steps that you should take if you're being evicted. Read the eviction notice. Contact a lawyer or a local tenant organization to understand your legal rights. 3, try to negotiate with your landlord. 4, start looking for new housing options. 5, go to your court hearings. 6, consider reaching out to community organizations. So these are all steps that I would suggest to someone. Now, what's interesting about Chat GPT is it's conversational and it doesn't always answer things the same way. In fact, I've had this conversation with it before. You guys aren't the first guinea pigs. And the step one that it gave the first time that I asked it this question, I actually thought was the one that I always start with, which is get a copy of your lease, look at your rental agreement. That's going to be extremely important as we navigate this issue. And it didn't say that in that assist in when it was breaking down these steps, but they're still pretty useful, right? And additionally, you can say, well, let's say you go to court. What legal arguments against eviction can I make in court? Depends on the circumstances. Absolutely right. Here's some potential arguments. And I think that's what's useful. Understanding what are the things I can argue so that I can see if any of the facts of my case match what those arguments are. So lack of proper notice. I love it. I mean, lawyers always love to lead off with getting their client situation resolved in a technicality, right? I mean, it's one of our favorites. So interesting to see that as number one. Talks about retaliation, um, discrimination, failure to maintain the property in a habitable condition, defects in the eviction notice, kind of the same as number one. But again, these are all great arguments to point someone facing eviction to consider and think about and consider if it relates to their situation. In my prior chat, which I'm going to go to just in the interest of time, it outlined these. And then I said, well, what if the reason that I stopped paying rent to the landlord is because they did not fix our only toilet? Then what should my legal argument be against eviction? And ChatGPT said, you may be able to argue that your landlord has breached the implied warranty of habitability. And then it goes on to explain that the implied warranty of habitability is a legal doctrine that requires landlords to maintain rental properties in livable condition. So that is a great way to steer someone who is totally unfamiliar with landlord-tenant law, especially when that is the prompt. I even asked it, if the landlord fails to fix the toilet and I pay someone to make the repairs, can I withhold that amount from the rent due to the landlord? And it responded and said that you're really not allowed to make repairs and withhold the cost. This is known as repair and deduct. It's only available in limited circumstances and with strict requirements. So what's interesting here is it's like, generally speaking, don't do that. Like, force your landlord to make the repair. Don't just go out and pay for it and withhold it from the rent, because that is not likely to be a remedy. But then it talks about how, you can find out if it is available, by looking at your state's laws, for example. And also, the fact that even if there is repair and deduct, consider the consequences, as making repairs without the landlord's permission could result in further legal action, right? You hire some contractor, he goofs up something in the building. Now you've got a liability for, fixing the mistake and the original repair. So it's interesting that is, very measured counsel to provide to someone who is completely unfamiliar with landlord-tenant law. And I think that is where, for me, the power of ChatGPT is really going to manifest in the legal world, in that it's going to give people who previously just did not have access to attorneys to get legal counsel, to now have a means to navigate their legal issue without spending a lot of money on counsel. Now, just like this will get you only so far, it's the same way when these people call me from out of the blue wanting advice. I can only get them so far, because if they need to go into a court, they need to hire an attorney, or they need to actually, do something requiring counsel, they need to hire an attorney. And I think that is where it can be helpful to lawyers as well, in that it's going to eliminate a lot of legwork and allow them to focus on really just exercising their expertise where it's really going to matter. So I love this advancement. I look forward to when it can be leveraged for me in my work, and my team might be working on that as we speak. But in any case, I think this is going to be just revolutionary for the legal industry, and how it allows people to get access to understanding the law. So I hope those that were unfamiliar enjoyed it. And yeah, happy Valentine's Day. Love you guys, and thanks for listening.